All right, welcome to Hot Route Takes. I am Chase Owens here with my usual co-host Brian and Christian, and we have reached the light at the end of the tunnel. Football season is here. For those of you who are new to this show and just now joining us, we are going to be releasing podcast episodes on your feed at Spotify and Apple Podcasts, as well as videos on our YouTube channel, Hot Route Takes, every Monday morning. Sunday we will record right after game action, probably during the Sunday night football game. Get that out to you Monday mornings. Wednesday we'll recap the news throughout the week, as well as a look ahead for next week's games, and have that on your feeds in Thursday mornings. So with that said, we're here. Finally, week 1 preview episode starts now, and we can kick things off and actually talk about who we think will win football games. And to jump with that, we're obviously going to start with the Thursday night game, Kansas City, Detroit. Very exciting matchup. You want to dive in, either of you guys, and tell me your thoughts on what's going to go down in this game?
Christian, you feeling it? I know you're a Chargers fan. You might have some strong thoughts here.
Sure, I'll go ahead. Going in this game, I kind of went back and forth on who I was going to pick, but I kind of looked, and Chiefs are maybe going to miss Travis Kelce in this game. Chris Jones is sitting out, and I've heard Snead, their strong safety, is also not going to play. So with kind of, big pieces missing, and the Chiefs, being a Chargers fan, I've noticed just they start out slow every year. And I think I'm going to take the Lions in this one just because, you know what they're going to do. They're going to run the ball. Chris Jones is not there, so I just expect them to run the ball the Dan Campbell way, and I can see them winning this game.
All right, well, that's a bold take, Christian. I'm here for it. I like it. Week 1, spiced up a little bit, but I'm not confident enough in Detroit to pick them over Kansas City just yet. I do think Detroit's poised to have a good season, but, Travis Kelce might not be playing, but Patrick Mahomes still is. I'm picking Kansas City.
Yeah. I do want to say we're going through on the Fantasy ESPN app under the Pigskin Pick'em, and we're going to be picking games each week. It is a public room for those that would care to join. It's under Hot Route Takes. It don't matter if you get in mid-season, wherever you join, but you can see our picks and follow along with us, as well as what we get out here on the podcast weekly. But that said, me and Brian both have Kansas City winning division. Christian does not. I see his reason to get Kansas City behind the 8 ball early, so his Chargers can take a quick lead and try to win this division. Me and Brian's on the same page, though. Kansas City defending champs. It's going to be an electric night, electric atmosphere. Football is back.
Can't wait.
We cannot wait. And regardless of Patrick Mahomes not being able to throw to his favorite guy, Travis Kelce, or not, he'll spread the love everywhere else. He's the betting favorite for MVP for a reason. And I think Detroit's a great team. We all have them winning the North, but they'll come up short against the best team in my mind and put up a fight, but it's too electric of an atmosphere and too good a team to overcome, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm with you all the way. So I believe the next matchup is Carolina versus Atlanta.
Man. It was kind of tough. I thought about this one too, and I actually, I'm going with the Panthers. I just think this defense, Bijan's first start, I kind of see them. I understand this offensive line. I give Atlanta a lot of credit, easily a top 5 offensive line, but I just think maybe Bijan doesn't get that workhorse load that first week that like the people think about this team. They just had a running back that was a 1,000-yard rusher. I think you still have to give him at least somewhat of a load to work with. I don't think you just take all that away from the guy that just kind of let it happen for you last year. And I'm kind of, wondering what they're going to do with Desmond Ridder this year. And I see Bryce Young maybe being a smarter quarterback on maybe not turning the ball over, and I think that's what this game's going to come down to. I understand Bryce Young weapons is a big question mark, and I think DJ Shark is questionable for this game, but honestly, I can see old Adam Thielen and them kind of get it done with the Panthers, and I just really see them kind of getting it done just because I don't think Atlanta's going to go all in on the whole Bijan just yet. I understand that's a high draft pick, but like I said, you had a guy that just ran for 1,000 yards. You can't just take the ball out of his hand.
Yeah, and I believe you had Carolina win the division, right, Christian?
Correct.
Yeah, so like you, I'm high on Carolina as well. Bryce Young, my favorite rookie QB. Excited to watch him match up. And I've got Carolina as well. I think this is one of the toss-up games of the weeks. Both young teams, both looking to take control of a weaker NFC South. And I just trust this Panthers defense as a complete unit right now, as one of the best units on either side of the ball in this division, and Bryce Young to make plays in his debut. And like Christian said, they've got a loaded running back room, and Bijan as a rookie, although the high draft pick usually warrants it, he's not going to come in and just take the snap count away from every running back. So he'll be sprinkled on the field and utilized, but not enough to make an impact to turn the game in the Atlanta's favor, in my opinion. What say you, Brian?
Well, I think it's totally the opposite. I think if you're willing to invest a top 10 draft selection in a running offense while having a 7th round pick last year and Tyler Algier run for 1,000 yards, I think they have a clear plan in place here, and that is to build this offense around a very unique talent in Bijan Robinson. So with this offensive line being the way it is, having a guy like Tyler Algier, and I'm not taking anything away from the guy, he did well last year, but a little bit more of a limited player, I think Bijan's going to fill in and just blow the doors off this thing, man. I really do. I think he's going to be awesome. Week 1. And a big part of the reason I think they're going to win, and I don't know if it'll be particularly all that close, is because Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, and Terrence Marshall are all listed as questionable for this game. So that's, a big deal. These guys are not coming in 100%. They're already not very good, in my opinion. And it's week 1 with a rookie quarterback. I'm not buying it. I'm going Atlanta.
Okay, interesting. Good to differ up here early. As I said, one of the more toss-up games of the week. We'll move on to one of my divisional matchups and the battle in Ohio between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Cleveland Browns. Cincinnati now establishing themselves as one of the better teams in the AFC for a few years now. I'm rocking with them and Joe Burrow, who I think is in for a great year. And I've got Jamar Chase in fantasy, so hopefully big numbers from him.
Goodness. I actually, went Cleveland in this game. I think Myles Garrett finally got his help on that defensive line. Joe Burrow, calf injury, question marks. So, I expect this defense to, see how good that calf is very quickly in this game and go after Joe Burrow. So, that's kind of, I'm leaning just them. And I just think if you get any Deshaun better than what was last year, honestly, this team's a great team. The roster's there. I think they're ready to win. It's just what Deshaun Watson are you getting? And I just honestly, I'm putting my money on Deshaun this year. I think this is going to be a great year for Deshaun. That's a hard flag to plant, but I just really think with Myles Garrett finally getting some help on the D-line, the corners got to get better than what happened last year. They got a guy that was a top 10 corner at one point in the league. He just kind of lost a step last year. So I just expect them, tired of hearing all the noise on, being the same Cleveland. This is the year I think they make some noise in that division.
All right. I do agree with you, Christian, in that it's a hard flag to plant for Deshaun Watson because week 1, I'm definitely not going to choose him over Cincinnati and Joe Burrow. So I'm going to go Joe Burrow. Another key injury in this matchup. It looks like Denzel Ward is listed as questionable for this game, and you need him in this matchup, especially going against Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. So I'm going to go with Cincinnati.
All right. We'll move on to a AFC South divisional matchup. The one division winner against the bottom team of last year, the Indianapolis Colts. Jacksonville coming off a hot streak. There's so much momentum in that camp. Trevor Lawrence is looking to take that next step and enter MVP conversations. I think they ride that against one of the more raw, young teams in football. Just really looking to see how Anthony Richardson looks. I think Jacksonville wins this game pretty comfortably, but as long as we see some things from Anthony Richardson that showcases the talent he is, I think that's a victory in itself for the Colts.
Nah, I agree with you, Chase. I think this is definitely Jacksonville's game. I think, like you, I'm looking for Anthony Richardson and definitely some of these weapons that they say are good enough to maybe step up and prove that they are good enough for Anthony Richardson to maybe have a good development year. The running back room, I believe it's Jackson is going to start. No Jonathan Taylor. That's kind of going to be a rough 4 games. I don't know if he's going to come back after the 4 games, but Anthony Richardson, this is going to be like kind of what we've seen at Justin Fields, how I look at the season for him. It's going to, if they're winning games, it's because he is taking over. And I think, against Jacksonville, there's just too much power on that side versus the Colts for them to ultimately lose this game against Jacksonville.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I don't think there's a whole lot to say here. I think Jacksonville's going to come out swinging. The big thing I'm looking for, besides Anthony Richardson, I'm very interested to see how he plays. My main thing is, can this Jacksonville defense get things going against a team like this? Can their pass rush come alive? That was a big problem that they have had, and I would like to see Trayvon Walker have a nice game here as a former number 1 overall pick against a weakened offensive line without weapons and a mobile quarterback. Let's see what he can do. I think this is a good opportunity to showcase the talent that he is.
Yeah, I agree with you, Brian. One note I do want to add in, I want to see how Doug Peterson utilizes Calvin Ridley in this offense. That was one of the big additions, quote unquote, of the offseason for a great quarterback, as Trevor Lawrence says, having that polished of a route runner now to work with. I want to see what that looks like from the jump, because that can become quickly one of the more dynamic QB wide receiver duos in the league. So I'll be watching that. Moving on to the NFC side here, we've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Minnesota Vikings. I know Brian had both of these guys the basement of their divisions. Christian's pretty low on both as well. I'm a little bit more optimistic on the Vikings because how dynamic the offense is, so that's why I've got them winning. And just looking to see Justin Jefferson take the top off and go for like 150 plus, whatever he usually does, and kind of carry this load and get a victory against Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I thought about it, and I just honestly couldn't go with the Tampa Bay, but I just know the Vikings defense is going to be so bad, and I expect, you can say what you want about Baker Mayfield, but the weapons they do have left in Tampa Bay are good enough to definitely get some yards and go up against this defense very easily, I think. I can expect Mike Evans and honestly Goodwin or Godwin to actually do good in this game, but it's just I can't just jump on Buccaneers beating bad defenses yet. I have to see Baker Mayfield actually do it. But I mean, I think this is a good game definitely for Baker to get into the system going up against this bad of a defense. But I just think, like I said, the last game, there's just too much power on that Vikings offense against this. I mean, it's still a good Tampa Bay defense, but I just think that it's just going to be rough for them to keep up with it if the offense isn't keeping up with the scoring on the other side. So I got Minnesota with just being Kurt this year again.
Gotcha. I'm with you guys. I got Minnesota too, but I got a little bit different reasoning here. I think Tampa Bay is going to have a long year. I think Minnesota will too, but especially Tampa Bay. And I think this would ideally, you would think, be an opportunity for Tampa Bay to come out and kind of show what they got, have Baker throw the ball around a little bit. This is a matchup to where you're not so worried about instant pressure getting to Baker. This is a defense that's a little bit more porous. You can maybe get a run game going here, and then try to play action off of that, get Baker some easy completions, kind of get him settled in. But I actually think Brian Flores is going to have a great opportunity to kind of showcase what makes him a great defensive mind and defensive coordinator. Even with limited personnel, I think this is a quarterback that he can take advantage of. So I'm going to go Minnesota. Obviously, the offensive side of the ball with Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson, that's a well-oiled machine. I think they'll have no problems moving the football all season long, really. The defense is going to be the Achilles heel of this football team, in my opinion. However, week 1 against a soft offensive line and bad quarterback, I think Brian Flores can take advantage, even with the limited personnel.
Yep. Moving on to one of the few AFC-NFC matchups of week 1, we have the Tennessee Titans against the New Orleans Saints. Two interesting mid QB driven teams, as we would probably say. Derek Carr probably a little bit better. I think all of us agree on that. And for that reason, I've got the Saints winning. Nothing flashy, but I want to see if Michael Thomas gets through the game healthy. If they target him at all, what kind of volume that is, or is Chris Olave, who looked really good last year, the established new wide receiver 1? I don't think Saints fans should have a problem if that's the case, because he's a dynamic player. But seeing what kind of chemistry Carr has with those guys will kind of showcase what the year is going to look like for New Orleans.
Yeah, this is another one I kind of went back and forth on. I really didn't know which way to lean, and honestly, I guess you could say this is going to be maybe one of my upsets. You can say I have Tennessee winning this game. I just think Derek Carr in the offense may get a slow start. I can see Tennessee being Tennessee, running, Derrick Henry, getting DeAndre Hopkins his touches. I think this is a good week for Tennessee to show, yes, people are low on us, but we're still here in this division. Kind of what they do every year. I can see this be that game. They kind of win and show that they still have something left on this roster. And say what you want, but I just think Tennessee, if the offense isn't clicking, Derrick Henry is going, I just see them ultimately winning this game. There is no Alvin Kamara on the Saints side, suspended, 3 games. I think that is a big piece for this offense, kind of what they want to do. And, I'm not that big on the Saints coaching, so just the other side is also better coaching to me in Tennessee, so I have them winning this game.
Yeah, I'm with you all the way, Christian, for a lot of the same reasons. I think Tennessee, they're still healthy. They got a lot of aging players on their roster, but as long as Tannehill is healthy, Derrick Henry is healthy, I do think that they have a chance to win football games, especially going against New Orleans week 1, new quarterback coming in, running a new system, no Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas is still question mark, I guess. Is he playing? He's not an injury report.
I did not see him listed on the injury report, so I believe he is good to go.
Well, if he's playing, that might change some things, but I'm going to go with Tennessee still. This might be a close game, though. I did go back and forth trying to pick on this game.
Okay. Getting to one of the better defensive matchups of week 1, if not the best, we have the San Francisco 49ers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you're looking for some low-scoring, hard-hit football, you're going to want to turn this one on, as these teams are going to lock together in Pittsburgh. I've been seeing a lot of national love for the Pittsburgh Steelers as a wild card team, which kind of shocked me. It seems a lot of people are jumping on the bandwagon that this offense, I think everyone agrees on how good the defense is, but a lot of national attention seems this offense is going to take a step. If that's the case, they have no harder chance to prove that against one of the better defenses in football. So if Kenny Pickett's really him and he puts up points against this defense, I may see the reasoning behind this national love right now for Pittsburgh. But I don't see it. We talked on our North Division prediction show last week that I don't see a lot from this offense that excites me. Kenny Pickett's the worst QB in this division. And I think San Francisco is the best defense in football. They just paid Nick Bosa, for those that missed that news today, becoming the largest or highest paid defensive player in NFL history. He's the reigning defensive player of the year for a reason. He just got a fat payday. He's one of the key cogs of this impressive defense, and I think they show out Sunday against Pittsburgh and make a lot of noise. I don't really see Pittsburgh getting much higher in the double digits. I think it's going to be a dominant affair from this defense.
Yeah, I got the 49ers, but I am a little concerned about this pick, honestly. Brock Purdy coming back off the injury, but they do have Christian McCaffrey back there, so that's why I kind of just, took it as it is, and I just believe in the 49ers as a team more. But I think this is the second year in a row now defense coordinator's gone and up and left this team, so that's kind of is a worry for me with this defense. But this is Nick Bosa, and people kind of forget, they did go getting Hargrave off of the Eagles. He was a free agent, so that's going to let Nick Bosa, I think, maybe not have that much of a harder time. I think that's going to lighten up, or maybe Hargrave would be maybe the key guy on this defensive line to maybe go get the quarterback. But I just believe more, I guess, in the 49ers defense than I do the Steelers defense. That's why I'm giving them a nod. But I will say I kind of believe the Steelers hype a little bit. I think Kenny Pickett does take a step this year, but I don't think it's going to be against this 49ers team.
Fair enough, guys. I'm picking San Francisco as well. And I might be one of the people out there that's a little bit lower on Pittsburgh in general. There's going to have to be some teams this AFC that are just not going to be good. And if I had to pick one, I'm kind of leaning towards Pittsburgh as one of those teams. And not because I think they're a bad team. I think they'd be a very competitive team in the NFC. And with the coaching they have, I still think they could end up being a very competitive team in the AFC. That's kind of the one thing that keeps me from just completely being out on them is Mike Tomlin being as good of a head coach that he is. I'm still worried about the offense. They kept Matt Canada, who is a awful offense coordinator, and they're running it back with Kenny Pickett, Najee Harris. Offensive line still, in my opinion, a question mark. They did draft Broderick Jones. I do think that it was a phenomenal move, especially with the type of brand of football they play. However, I think they're just a little limited. I think the 49ers defense is just too good, especially week one. I think they're going to be ready. It's hard to get the offense moving week one, normally as is, particularly when you're going against a defense as good as the 49ers have. So I'm going to go with San Francisco, although I do think Pittsburgh's defense will show up to play in this game and give Brock Purdy lots of fits. I do think it'll be a low-scoring game. It's going to kind of be whoever makes less mistakes will win. It's kind of where my head is.
Yep. No. I think that's going to be the national consensus with that game for sure. Moving on to one of probably the weaker games. We probably don't want to talk about a whole much, but we're going to cover everything here because we're not going to show any hate towards anybody. Some fan bases are looking forward to week one is the new year, right? So there's Commanders and there's Cardinals fans out there. Maybe they're listening. We're not going to bag on y'all's teams too much. We may not think they're the best, but regardless, one of them's got to win unless they tie because the NFL, they have ties. and if there's a candidate for a game to tie, maybe it's this one. I'm not going there because I think the Cardinals, by large amount, should be one of the worst teams in football this year. Looks like they have Joshua Dobbs starting. Good luck to them scoring points at all this season, man. The Commanders at least have weapons, and they have a young, hopeful, inspiring QB that's going to get his first shot to take over this offense and with Eric Bieniemy and see what they can cook up on that side of the football. I think they'll have a fine week one against this defense and win this game pretty comfortably.
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing with you, Brian. I think if you're, or not Brian Chase, if you my bad. If you are a Commanders fan, this is honestly what you wanted to see on your schedule for week one. You get your new OC in there, let him do really kind of, I ain't going to say whatever he wants, but they can draw up some stuff and he can try some stuff and see really what he has with this offense in this game. And I just think, the new ownership is very excited because this is going to be new ownership's probably first win, to be honest with you. And I just see them beating Arizona because the only bright star they had in my eyes was Isaiah Simmons, and they traded him to the Giants.
No love for Buda Baker, man.
No,
we love Buda. He's a great player.
He's great, but
that's it, though.
Yeah, that's it.
I kind of went back and forth on this one, man, because ultimately I'm just looking for killers, and that leads me to pick the Cardinals in this. I'm just kidding. Completely kidding. Jonathan Gannon is a joke. If you guys have heard that, I cannot believe what he said. But anyway, I am looking for killers, and the killers I see in this matchup is that Washington defensive line. Okay, and they're going to eat this Cardinals offensive line alive, man. It's going to be ugly in my opinion, and I'm going to side with the Commanders. I think this is a good opportunity to kind of let Sam Howell off the leash, see what he can do in this competition. This isn't a very good defense by any stretch of the imagination. This is kind of an opportunity to evaluate Sam Howell and kind of let him, play more free, open, see what he's got. Because you can definitely lean on this defense in this matchup. I'm picking the Commanders.
All right. We'll move it on. Finally getting to one of our three favorite teams. That's mine, the Baltimore Ravens. That's going to be playing the 1 o'clock window at home against the rebuilding and new rookie QB-driven Houston Texans. Obviously, the Ravens are favored in this matchup. We're not going to take a deep dive on which team we think should win. I've got the Ravens both in my heart and in my head. I'm going to try not to pick so much with my heart this year in our matchups. I want us to win every game, don't get me wrong. But I am going to try to be level-headed on this pod. And when I see a matchup I don't like and just a week or an injury or whatever it may be that doesn't favor the Ravens, I'm not going to let the bias come in. I did pick them to finish second in the division for a reason. Pretty level-headed. So that said, I'm not bold enough to make this my upset of the week. CJ Stroud, typically rookie QBs fare pretty poorly against the Ravens in history past. So I would kind of expect more of the same and just really looking at this offense to see what type of identity they establish in week one and moving forward and the Lamar Jackson, Todd Monken era.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Chase. I think this is, Baltimore's going to win this game. I'm excited to see what the offense look like, but honestly, I wouldn't take it too serious to see what kind of goes on the offense side until maybe next week. I think Baltimore's really going to have it pretty easy this game. The only thing I would maybe want as a Baltimore fan is Lamar to stay in the pocket and not try to create big plays against his team because they should be up and feeling comfortable, and you don't want to risk an injury this early to Lamar.
Yeah, I'm with you all the way. Easy pick, Baltimore. Although I will state Marlon Humphrey, Ronnie Stanley, and Mark Andrews are all listed as questionable for this football game. If they play or they don't play, I don't think it matters. I think it's going to be Baltimore.
I will say when the Ravens are on the field and the Texans defense are on the field, that's the most compelling matchup to watch because the Texans have so many young, dynamic defensive players. You want to see how they match up with good established offensive players. So that's interesting for Texans fans to watch. I know I've got a few in my life that enjoy Texans football. So just look out for Stingley and Will Anderson, who was a home run pick in my opinion.
Petrie.
Yeah, and Petrie, who had a great rookie year. See what kind of impact they make on this game, which it can be. They're good players. So we'll move on to the NFC North matchup between the Green Bay Packers and Chicago Bears.
Good one.
Green Bay, yes, a very exciting one because Green Bay will be opening up the Jordan Love era. He's got his time to sit behind Aaron and learn a few things. This is the first of our 425 late window kickoffs. So it's exciting young quarterbacks in Chicago. It's usually, I hadn't checked the weather. My brother's living down there. I have to ask him, but I assume it's going to be cold and windy as opening week typically is in Chicago. So for that, I am going to pick Chicago because I lean a more dynamic run game and I think a better defense. Even though the Packers have established stars, I think the Bears could be a decent defense this year. And I had them finishing above Green Bay in the division predictions, so I'm going to take them in the head-to-head.
Yeah, I agree with you, Chase. I got Chicago. I just think Edmonds, the addition they added on the defense, is going to take a lot of what Jordan Love's probably going to be looking for in the middle of the field. And I just honestly see the hiccups we've seen last year with Aaron. I don't think that just disappears with Jordan Love stepping in. I think this is going to be a lot of hiccups at the beginning of the season for Green Bay. And honestly, I hate to say it, but it's going to come up against, their big rival in Chicago. And I see Justin Fields having a big year with them actually going to get him some weapons this year. And honestly, maybe have a good running game. And just Green Bay, I just don't see Jordan Love doing great in week one. I hope he maybe does, but I just have Justin Fields having a bigger game on that side of the ball. So I'm going with Chicago.
I hear you guys. I think that's good reasoning behind both of those. I kind of am going a different direction here. I think Chicago has a glaring weakness on their defense, and that is their defensive tackles. I think they're going to have a hard time stopping the run. And if we know one thing, the Packers have the pieces to run the football. So I do think they're going to run the football. I think it's going to be a healthy dose of A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones, play action off of that with Jordan Love, and I think they'll be able to get some stuff going on the offense. But on the flip side of things, I think Chicago will get some stuff rolling on the offensive side of the ball. I do have a little bit more faith in Green Bay's defense, though. And I ultimately think Green Bay starts off the Jordan Love era with a W.
Okay, that's certainly welcome for Packers fans to hear. They're excited to turn this chapter and move forward post Aaron Rodgers. Moving forward to a new look offense with a new head coach. That's going to be the Denver Broncos with Sean Payton going up against the Las Vegas Raiders. And this is going to take place in Denver and Mile High, so the altitude will be a factor week one. See how in shape guys are, as Mile High altitude is no joke. See who got their offseason work in and is ready to play a premium number of snaps. I think that works to Denver's advantage because their defense is pretty dang sound, especially with Pat Surtain there to match up against Devontae Adams. That's one of the most mouthwatering matchups, positional battles of the week. Look forward to seeing that. And we'll see what the new look Russ-led Sean Payton offense looks like. I think it'll be better than last year. Still don't really see Denver as a playoff team, nor do I see Vegas. But I did have Denver finishing above Vegas in this division, and I think they'll kick that off with a Week 1 victory.
Yeah, I'm going the opposite way, Chase. I cannot get behind the Denver team, not yet, after seeing what I seen last year. And I see Sean Payton already, on rust 24/7. Honestly, I think the Raiders in this game, I think Josh Jacobs is going to have a big day. I understand the passing game is going to be a rough one for the Raiders, but I just think Josh Jacobs got that money. He's going to prove why he was worth that. And on the other side, Denver's offense is missing a lot of pieces. Judy's out. Tim Patrick, another season injury. Hate to hear that, but they're just missing a lot. And there's the second round pick, Mims they took, is starting on Denver's wide receiver core. And then Williams, they said he will play, just not a big workload. They're going to try to work him in. So I just think Denver isn't very completed on the offensive side, and I just don't see it going too well with Max Crosby, definitely seeing what happened the rest of last year. If you got Max Crosby in a defensive fantasy team, I expect for him to have a big day against this Denver team.
So I think this will probably end up being a defensive matchup, honestly. And that's just because I believe so much in the Broncos defense, man. I really do. I think their defense is just really good. And then it's not so much I think the Raiders defense is good. I just think the Broncos offense is just garbage. Even with the new head coach coming in, I have little faith in Russ to get things moving. I think this is going to have to be a rushing attack for Denver for them to have success. I know the Raiders have a hard time stopping the run. That's kind of been their Achilles heel they've had several Achilles heels the last couple of years, but that's one of them. And I'm just really low on the Raiders, man. I think it's going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. Even with the pieces they got in Josh Jacobs and Vontae Adams, who are clear top end players, I think they may end up getting traded by the end of the season. I think this might be a rough year for the Raiders. And ultimately, I'm picking Denver because of their defense.
Yeah. We're on the same page, Brian. That was more one of the 50-50s according to this pick'em right now. Right now, the audience has 52% with Denver, 48% with Vegas. So truly a toss-up game of the week. Moving on, we've got one of the more lopsided games. The defending NFC champion Philadelphia Eagles going to Gillette and playing the New England Patriots. For our money, probably a unanimous decision that this Eagles roster, if not the best in football, definitely top 2 or 3 overall rosters. Jalen Hurts has got his payday. They've locked him up for a long-term deal. The offense has added pieces like Swift and Penny to amplify the run game even more. And that's not even touching on the defense that led the league in sacks last year with 2 top 5 cornerback duo on the outside. I don't really see this one being particularly close. And no matter how many weeks Bill Belichick, greatest coach he is, gets to prepare, when the talent gap is this wide, it's hard to pick anything else. So, Eagles big in this one.
No, I agree with you, Chase. I got Eagles big. I think the bright side, if you're a New England fan, you'll see how good your defense is to see what you can do against this Eagles team. And then on the other side, the Eagles' bright side is you can see Jalen Carter, see how much he actually gets to play and see what Nolan Smith kind of role. You'll get to see, I think, a lot of your rookies come in and get a bunch more snaps and see what they're kind of going to do for this team. And then, like you said, the Swift and Penny's backfield is kind of a good question mark for me. I kind of want to see who's going to be their lead guy, who kind of does what. But I honestly just see kind of the Eagles do it the Eagles way, and this will be a running back by committee, and they'll have a bunch of guys in and out of this lineup. But besides that, easily Eagles win this one.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe this, but Devontae Parker's on the injury report week 1.
Okay, this guy.
I'm not even going to talk much more about this. Philly all the way. One of the best, probably the best roster in the NFL. If I had to make a pick, there ain't a whole lot to say here, man. Eagles big.
Yep. All right. Next on the list, I'm sure y'all gonna be smiling at this one, and I'm gonna set it up because I believe myself looks like it's gonna be the tiebreaker. That is the Miami Dolphins, of course, Brian's favorite team, and the LA Chargers, led by Justin Herbert, Christian's favorite team. I believe I know which side both of you are going to lean on, but I'll let Brian go first, Christian follow, and I'll try to be the tiebreaker, unless by some miracle I don't have to be.
All right, so I got Miami. Surprise. I think ultimately this game is going to come down to which defensive line can get pressure on the quarterback the most. Who can disrupt the timing? Last year, we saw what happened. The Chargers had an excellent game plan. They were pressing guys off the line of scrimmage, just interrupting the timing. Tua couldn't get anything going offensively, but we still barely lost that football game. It was only, I think, at the end, 7 to 10 point game, something like that. And really, we should have been blown out because we couldn't move the ball at all on offense. And the Chargers just routinely got chance after chance after chance to just put us away. And we stayed in that game to the very end almost. So ultimately, I think it comes down to Tua and the offense being competent this time around and the defense holding their own. Because Justin Herbert's going to get his. We all know that. It's just holding your own and make it uncomfortable for Justin Herbert. Try to get after him, disguise your defense, and just try to make something happen, make a play. That's all you can do against a guy like that. So I think it's going to be a really close game, man. I really do. Just barely side with Miami, though.
Yeah, I'm going, definitely with the Chargers in this game. My only big question mark, kind of like Brian was questioning some things on his team, is what J.C. Jackson are we getting this year? The big injury. A lot of guys don't come back from this injury as soon as he did. And then the next thing is, getting pressure on Tua is going to be the big thing. But I just think with Kellen Moore, like Brian said, we kind of didn't hit the gas pedal at times last year. And I think with this new offense, that's going to be the opposite. I think we're going to try to blow teams out, which I will say I don't think that's going to happen this game. I think this is going to be a very back and forth, like Brian said, defensive game. People are going to expect both of these offenses to probably be very high power, and I just don't think it's going to be this week. Maybe next week both of these offenses will get kicked and going in full gear, but I think this is going to be a defensive match. Honestly, a chess match on what defense can maybe disguise some things and get to the quarterbacks. Ultimately, I think which team ends with the most sacks will probably be the team that wins this game.
Yeah, very good notes there, guys. This is pretty split down the middle. One of the most even matchups of week one. Right now, the audience has 51% picking LA, 49% picking Miami. Truly a toss-up. One of the premier week one matchups. Definitely the premier matchup of the 4:25 late window kickoff. So it's hard for me. I do think that I want to say this is going to be a shootout no matter, and regardless, I think both of these defenses are good, but I think it's going to be a shootout for a couple reasons. Jalen Ramsey's out, so as great and talented as the Dolphins defense is, I think that subtraction and the matchup of Justin Herbert leads to a lot of points on their side, and the multiple weeks of preparation for a offensive mind like McDaniel, I think that bodes well for Miami. So I think Tua puts up points on their side. Ultimately, I have the Chargers winning a close one. Very good team.
Join the 51%.
I'm joining the 51%. Games like this, home field can matter. Special teams can matter. And I think we touched on the AFC East pod. The Dolphins special teams was a truly bad unit last year, and field position matters these type of games. I think Justin Herbert's in for a little better year, regardless of the weapons and the talent. I think highly of both these teams, both these quarterbacks. But for a while, I've been saying I believe in Herbert more, and as a result, I believe in the Chargers more to get a week one victory.
Love to hear it.
Yeah, there's not going to be many times our teams are going to match up throughout the year. I believe my Ravens play both of y'all some point. I know Brian might be towards the end of the year. Chargers pretty late in the season, where none of us are in the same division, but we do match up in the same conference. So it's nice to have this type of matchup week one, and most of your team healthy, because throughout the year injuries are going to happen, and it's never fun to see two beaten and battered teams go up against it. So mostly healthy week one matchup is fun. It's in the late window and the premier game of the late window for a reason, and we're all looking forward to it. And I'm guessing we'll be together watching it, so that might be the funnest thing about it, because there will be little or not little to no trash talk. It's going to be like a basketball pickup game, the trash talk between Brian and Christian during this game. It's
going to be like a Call of Duty lobby.
Xbox. Whoa. Oh, my goodness. I wasn't going to go that far. Oh, my God. But yeah, fun matchup. Obviously, one of the best games of the week. We'll move on to the last late window game, and that's the West Coast game between NFC squads. The 2-year removed Super Bowl champion LA Rams, who were beaten and battered, injured as any team last year, going up against the shock of last season, the Seattle Seahawks and Geno Smith. I think the Rams will be out without Cooper Kupp again, so that offense is already taking a hit in the injury department. So for that reason, I've got Geno, who they drafted Jackson Smith and Jigba, and he is listed. I saw a notification that he will play this game. I think they implement him in this offense quickly, and the other weapons, Geno gets involved. Seattle will have a strong game. I think they win this one by a score or two.
Nah, I agree with you, Chase. I think, this Rams team is just coached too good for this to just be a straight blowout. They play each other twice a year. They know each other pretty well. But my big thing is the question mark, I guess, on Geno. Is Geno going to be the same Geno we seen last year, or Geno going to be going back to, the old Geno, which ultimately I don't think Seattle's going to let that happen. I kind of see them, get behind a Kenneth Walker. Maybe not early in this game because Aaron Donald is on the other side of the football, but I can see them kind of get that passing game going and go ahead and lean into the run and run that thing on out of there and take this win.
Yeah, I'm with both you guys. I don't think it's going to be particularly close. I think it's going to be kind of Seattle and cruise control for majority of the game. I have a hard time finding where the Rams are going to have wins against this Seattle roster. I think they have a hard time passing or running the football. I think the really lone bright spot I see here is Aaron Donald being there to kind of put a halt to this run game a little bit because they're going to want to run the football. Kind of force Geno's hand a little bit. We'll see how that looks like, but I still got Seattle. I wouldn't say big, but comfortably.
Yeah. Yep, and that gets us to the Sunday night game, which we will have our prediction for, but of course, we're going to be recording on Sunday nights. So, just for the audience ahead, we will not know the result when we're recording Sunday nights. We will review that in the Monday night game in the Wednesday podcast and have that for you. So, the Sunday night week 1 matchup is one of the favorite NBC matchups they love to pull is Dallas and the Giants. Seen these two teams battle a bunch of times, both playoff teams last year. The Saquon show is back in effect. Daniel Jones has gotten paid. Good draft, you could say, from New York, all positive things, but me and Brian touched on our East prediction podcast that we think the Giants are due to regress. I think that's going to start pretty early here. I would look for Dallas defense to get a few turnovers from Daniel Jones and win this game. I don't think it'll be a blowout by any means, but I think Tony Pollard will have a nice day and Dallas defense as well.
Yeah, I went back and forth for a little bit, and I really just thought about the wide receiver room and the Giants, and it's just they're going up against Diggs and now Stephon Gilmore, so I just expect it's going to be a rough day for Daniel Jones unless Darren Waller somehow, some way goes to vintage Darren Waller and don't get hurt and has a great day. I can see them try to get Darren Waller and Barkley to kind of be the focus point in this offense this season. So, I just don't think that's enough to, do anything on this Cowboys team. I think they just have too much power. Kind of excited to see what Michael Parsons does full-time on the line. So, that's be one interesting thing to watch during this game to see what Michael Parsons is in his, new position full-time. But, the only thing that worries me is, Mike is calling the plays, and then what Dak Prescott are we getting early in the season? Is he going to be, MVP Dak that people like to say in Cowboys land only, or is he going to be the turnover Dak Prescott? But I just don't see the Giants getting that many to make it be where they're going to win this game, so I got Dallas.
I got you guys. This might be my upset of the week. I'm going with the Giants here. I think it's week 1. It's early in the season. These teams know each other extremely well. And this is going to be kind of the first time Dak's going to have to lean on his arm a little bit more than the rushing attack, especially early on in the season. I think, is Terrence still going to play in this game?
I have not seen him listed, honestly.
Yeah, he's not listed on the injury report. Tyler Smith, their starting left guard, is questionable for this game. However, I think the Giants can get something going on the ground, make a little something happen here and there, and just really inch one out by the skin of their teeth like they were doing last year. And I like Brian DeBall a lot as a head coach. I think he put together a good game plan, really test this this Dallas Cowboys secondary. Be interesting to see what happens here, but I'm going to go with the Giants.
Okay, that's your upset of the week. Christian, you had yours. I believe you had Cleveland for yours. I was so vanilla. I didn't really have. I guess if you wanted to lock me in for one, I had Carolina, which they were picked less than Atlanta, but it's not a true upset. But that was mine of the week. Anyway, we get to our last game, and that is the Monday night matchup with probably the most talked about team of the offseason against perhaps maybe the most forgotten team, who's still a very good team and two very good quarterbacks in this game. It's going to be the Buffalo Bills traveling to MetLife to take on the New York Jets. Aaron Rodgers show in New York. Does it get off to a good week one start? I think the Jets are a good team. I think they're a playoff team. Spoiler alert for early or in future podcasts and later in this show. That said, I had Buffalo winning division, and I think Josh Allen's got a little bit to prove and a sour taste of how bad that Bengals game happened last year. I think Buffalo will remind a few media and national lookers that they're still a really good team. Josh Allen's still a really good quarterback. And despite the moves and the noise around New York and the talents that they have on that football team, I think Buffalo pulls out a good and exciting Monday Night Football opener.
What you got, Christian?
Hey, you already know where I stand, guys. I got New York Jets winning this one, man. I mean, it's not, bias. I know that's what y'all are leaning in probably, but I thought about, no Von Miller, Edmonds out. Middle of the field is going to be a big question mark on the, Buffalo Bills side to me. Their corners, I mean, what are we getting out of White this year? And then I know after that, it kind of gets scary in their cornerback room. So I just expect this offense to kind of take advantage of that with the weapons they have, and Aaron being who Aaron is, probably eat up the middle of the field without Edmonds being there. And then honestly, if we have any, I think of even a 50% of, Breece Hall in that backfield with a Dalvin Cook, I could see them maybe running this game a lot because, there's no Von Miller, and then that defensive line, really, there's nothing else there but Oliver. I know he was, drafted a couple years ago, but just hadn't been probably what they wanted. So I just think the Jets honestly have more firepower than Buffalo do on the offensive side. I kind of, for Buffalo, I will say I'm kind of excited to see what Cook gets. What's his workload? Is he actually going to be the full down running back, or what they're going to do on that side? But I just can't put my chips all in on, Gabe Davis kind of doing anything to, either Sauce or DJ Reed in this game. So I just think, the defensive matchup and on the offensive side, I think just to me is favoring the Jets in this matchup. So I just have them winning this one ultimately.
All right. That's good reasoning, I think. I'm still going to go with Buffalo. I think it ultimately, for me, comes down to Josh Allen. Just being Josh Allen in this football game, I think he's going to run around, make stuff happen, and just be what he's been the last couple of years. I think he needs to cut down the turnovers. I think this game potentially will have turnovers on both ways, on both sides. The Jets trying to piece it together in week one, trying to find out what their identity is going to be. Let's see what Aaron looks like in this new offense, and maybe they'll have a run game going. I don't know. The Jets are kind of a question mark right now as far as what they're going to try to do offensively. Buffalo, I am a little bit concerned about their defense, I will admit. That kind of makes me a little bit nervous in this football game just because they did lose Tremaine Edmonds and they lost Leslie Frazier. What is this defense going to look like? I'm just going to edge Buffalo here. I don't really have a whole lot of great reasoning. It's week one. I still want to see these teams play. But based on track record, based on, continuity and things like that, I'm a side with Buffalo.
Okay. Well, that wraps it up for our week one preview. But before we get out of here today, we do have some exciting stuff to get to. We want to plant our flags and go on record before the football season officially kicks off with some award predictions. We're going to go through each award here, and then we'll get to the rest of. We have our divisions winners on record now in the previous podcast. So we're going to get our wild card teams out there as well. and just paint a picture for how we feel the whole 2023-2024 football season is going to go, what players to look out for, what teams to look out for, and where we think things stand going into this season. And at the end of it, we'll come back to it, laugh at how bad our takes were, and what teams and what players didn't even live up to what we thought they were going to be. And as always, just have fun with it because this is going to be a fun ride. So, what better way than to kick off some awards and what players we think should have big years? I'm going to start things, guys, with the Rookie of the Years. We'll do offensive first if you guys have a guy in mind, or defense, whichever way you want to go. But I'm going to start with offense here. I let the bias take over, guys. I let the Kool-Aid get drunk on this one. I don't think any Raven. This to me is the only award a Raven will win this year. There's a lot of Lamar MVP talk from national media. There's Defensive Player of the Year for like guys like Roquan who's sound and whatnot. But ultimately, I think the Ravens have finally found a playmaker at receiver. And I think they finally drafted a home run at that position. I've loved everything I've seen from Zay Flowers. And in my mind, he gets sprinkled in enough. It's a loaded position, guys. We saw 4 straight receivers off the board. I think you take any one of those and put money on them to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, I think you got a good chance of winning. These are some talented guys. Ultimately, I'm rocking with mine. I think he's a hell of a football player. I think Zay Flowers goes out and produces year one, makes a lot of highlight plays, gets in the end zone, puts up some yak, and becomes a real fan favorite and a favorite of Lamar's as well. So, yeah, Zay Flowers are for Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I'm not drinking that Kool-Aid, Chase. I'm sorry. But I have actually Jamar Gibbs. I think with this Lions team, they're going to get him, in the rushing and passing. I think voters are going to see that. They're going to see the rushing and, I think, passing touchdowns. So I just think with both of those mixing together and, that draft pick they spent that a lot of people didn't like on how high he went, they're going to have to put him in this offense. I think, the offense coordinator come out and say they have a couple great ideas for this guy. So other rookies, I think they're going to have to get worked into their systems, maybe take a little bit of time. And I think this guy's just going to go right out there and get the volume immediately. So pretty easy pick for me. I'm going to go with Gibbs.
Yeah, I got Bijan Robinson. I think for a lot of the same reasons Christian has for Jahmyr Gibbs. I think he's going to be an integral part of this offense. I think they're going to build it around him. I think he'll be involved in the rushing game and in the passing game. And I think they'll lean on him pretty heavily. Arthur Smith coming over from Tennessee, running that offense that featured Derrick Henry. I think Derrick Henry, Bijan Robinson is the Derrick Henry of this offense. So we'll see what that looks like. But yeah, I got Bijan.
Okay. Yeah, I like it. For the defensive side, we'll pause there. This is typically a QB-driven award. We've got multiple rookie QBs. I'm surprised none of us picked them, but I think we're banking on some more well-rounded teams, which I don't blame any of us for. But yeah, Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, don't write them off for this award either. If any of them take their teams to the playoffs, that's when they become the betting favorite by a landslide. So we're not going to ignore them. We know those guys are good and have talent. Moving on to the defensive player or defensive rookie of the year. I copped out and I went with the highest drafted rookie guy. I like a lot of these guys that were drafted, but in my mind, Will Anderson was one of the best prospects I've seen come out in a while. Loved everything he did at Alabama. And I think D'Amico getting to play with him in Houston's new look defense, bringing over Jimmy Ward and Stingley and Petrie, all those dynamic young players on that side of the ball. I think Houston's really building something, and I think Will Anderson's in for success year one. I think he'll have put up numbers and have a great year one, taking home the Defensive Rookie of the Year award.
I like that.
Yeah, I like it. I went kind of with an odd man. I think a lot of people are kind of not going to go in this direction, but I just think that at the end of the season, his stats are just going to be there and they're going to jump out. And that's actually Brian Branch. Crazy enough, these both picks are Lions, but I just think Brian Branch is just what I've seen so far. I understand it's preseason, but just this guy is a player. And I just think with Detroit and kind of what they've been doing with this defense, running a lot of nickel, this guy's going to be out there all plays. I think every down he will be there. So I just expect Brian Branch, honestly, to get some of those interceptions, some of the balls bounce his way, the breakups, definitely the tackles. So I just think Brian Branch stats at the end of the year are just going to be too insane to ignore this guy.
I love me some Brian Branch. That's one of my favorite players that came out last year. However, I did not go with Brian Branch. I went with Jalen Carter for the Philadelphia Eagles. I just think he's set up, man. He's got the guys on either side of him where he's going to get a lot of one-on-one opportunities, and I think he's going to just feast. So Jalen Carter, man, I think he's going to have quite an impact for the Philadelphia Eagles this season.
Yeah, arguably the 1-1 prospect coming out the draft. And if there's a guy set up for success, that's the situation to be in. That line, that team, that roster, and a heck of a player to back it up, having a strong training camp. Looking forward to these rookies. There's a strong draft class this year. Each of our teams, we think, hit some home run picks. And we think other teams got the bad teams got better in new, young, dynamic quarterbacks and whatnot. So we'll be watching out for these rookies all season long and excited to watch some good football. We'll move on to the Defensive Player of the Year and the Offensive Player of the Year. This award's typically a sack-driven award for defense, and for offense, it's kind of the non-QB MVP award, as we've talked before. We'll start it off with defense. I believe Nick Bosa is the reigning Defensive Player of the Year. He just got paid, arguably in the running again. He should be a heavy favorite, although this position and this side of the ball is loaded with talent throughout the league. You got the names like T.J. Watt and previous winners like Aaron Donald, who's won the award multiple times. A lot of guys to choose from. I'm going with, let's see. I think I'm going to go with Micah Parsons here. He's set up for a good year. Dallas, they added to the secondary. They've got a much more sound defense this go round, which they were fine last year. But Micah Parsons has been wreaking havoc since he entered the league. And I just really expect more of the same. He's a heck of a pass rusher. I think him focusing full-time on just getting to the quarterback is going to lead to good things for Dallas. And he'll put up the numbers and maybe flirt with that sack record and be the force. And in my money, the Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, I went back and forth on two guys. TJ Watt was one of those guys I was going back and forth on. But just the health is a big question mark. I understand he's healthy right now, but it just time and time again, I feel like he will miss some games. Hate to say it. I love watching this guy, but how high I've been on the Browns, I had to go on that side of the ball, and I went with Myles Garrett. I just think the adding of Smith on this defensive line, they went and got some other pieces on this line. I think finally Myles Garrett will get some of that media attention. I understand it's Cleveland. That doesn't help him with the media attention, but this guy's a player. He gets to the quarterback every year, caused havoc by himself. Now he's actually got like a sidekick, you can say. So I expect Myles Garrett to have a big season this year, and that's why ultimately I think he wins Defensive Player of the Year.
All right. I'm siding with you, Chase. I got Micah Parsons here, and I just think he's been such a dynamic player since he's been in the league, and now he's transitioning full-time, rushing the passer. Apparently he put on some weight as well. I have a lot of belief in the kid. I think he's the best edge rusher in the NFL, and I think he's going to push for 20 sacks this year. So, Mike Parsons.
Love it. We'll flip the side of the ball and go to offense, which, as we said, is typically the non-QB award. I believe Justin Jefferson's last year's winner. Rightfully so, a dynamic year. We think he's in for another one, if he stays healthy and on the field. He'll flirt with a possible 2,000-yard receiving season. We've been heard thrown out there now. He's the type of guy to get that done in a 17-game schedule now. That said, I differ, and I think this is going to come from a offense you may not expect an Offensive Player of the Year from, and a position that doesn't get a lot of love anymore. But I'm going Christian McCaffrey with the San Francisco 49ers because I think that trade last year was a home run trade for San Francisco. I think he is working with the mastermind of all masterminds on the offensive side of the ball to get him involved in every aspect of the game. The only thing that worries me and him about not winning this award is them wanting to protect him and keep him safe and limit his snap count and his utilization. That said, I don't think San Francisco's QB play is established and strong enough to do that. I think Christian gets the workload. I think he gets red zone touches in plenty and puts up touchdowns and fantasy points galore for anyone that has him. I think that San Francisco may not be the most sexy offense out there in the NFC, but I think Christian McCaffrey's in for a big year, and he'll win that award.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick, Chase. I do. I like what Christian McCaffrey's been. He's been a workhorse in the Panthers, went to the 49ers, and kind of got a little bit taken off of him. But I went in a different direction. I kind of went with a guy got some high stock in, and that's Garrett Wilson. I think, he's the real number one on this offense. He won Offensive Rookie of the Year without a quarterback. He had 3 of them. And I think this year he actually has a number one. So I expect Garrett Wilson and, Aaron to get that connection, kind of like what Aaron had with Devontae Adams. So I have very high hopes for Garrett Wilson in this offense. And, like I said, the kid won Offensive Rookie of the Year with 3 quarterbacks. Now he has 1. I expect Garrett Wilson to put up a lot of numbers this year with Aaron.
Love it. Hot take of the pod so far, because he's a heck of a player, but predicting him to be the best offensive player in football is a hot take. He certainly got the QB to do it now, so I love it, Christian. Great call. Bold call on that one.
No comment.
Come on, man. Show them some
I'm
love,
going with Tyreek
Brian.
Hill. Man, you know how I feel about the Jets, man. We're just overrating players around here, man.
Garrett Wilson, we ain't going down this road. Go ahead and talk about Tyreek Hill, man.
Jefferson,
I'm not doing that.
Ja'Marr Chase.
I hear you, man. I hear you.
I'm going with Tyreek Hill. He was on pace to surpass 2,000 yards last year with Tua on the field. I think with a healthy Tua, another year in this offense, Tyreek Hill is only going to be better. And I think he can surpass 2,000 yards this year and lead the NFL in receiving. We'll go Tyreek Hill.
Wow. Nice, Brian. Okay. Christian, unless you've got a MVP lined up, you're the only one that hasn't picked one of their guys to win an award. Let's find out right now if you're gonna take that bait, because I have an Offensive Rookie of the Year. Brian's got a Offensive Player of the Year. Now we're gonna give our MVP picks. I went back and forth. Obviously, this is a QB-driven award now. There's plenty of good QBs. I'm gonna say this before anyone takes their shot. If it's Patrick Mahomes, say something else, because everyone knows Patrick Mahomes, healthy, is in this conversation. He always will be. And if you're a betting man, that's probably who you want to take. I went a different direction. There's a number of QBs that are exciting and fun to watch. Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Justin Herbert. Take any of those guys. They're in for a MVP at some point in their career, as if they're just going to have to beat Patrick to do it. I planted my flag in the camp of Joe Burrow, and God, you have no idea. Yeah, a Ravens fan. Mark it on the pod. You think if anyone on this pod that listens ever thinks I'm biased, go back and play this clip, because I just picked my rival to win league MVP. I'm not a hater. Joe Burrow's that guy. He's good. He's good as hell, man. Like, he's got the weapons. They went out and added to the O-line, and they've got a dynamic passing unit. That's a take and a half, I know, and it hurts me to say it. I may just give him the regular season award and see if I see him in the playoffs. Maybe that's my thinking. Who knows? Who knows what I'm thinking, right? I've got Joe Burrow. He's just established himself as one of the young, up-and-coming, great QBs in the league. I think the North prediction pod that I thought he was in for an MVP. I wasn't at that time convinced it was going to be this year, but if I'm taking someone other than Patrick Mahomes, I went back and forth a few guys, and I landed on the guy with some of the best weapons in football and one of the best teams, I think, in football, and that's Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, and Joe winning his first MVP.
Yeah. I was going to say someone, but I can't do it because, my other guy. But if Garrett Wilson does have that, I expect Aaron Rodgers to be in MVP talks, but I just could not, go to Brian's house and give him like CPR, because he would definitely fall out if I did double Jets, guys. So I had to save Brian on this one. I think, I went with my guy, Justin Herbert. I just think with this offense, Kellen Moore has been top 3 in scoring, passing, everything on the offensive side. So I just think with our weapons, Justin Herbert, that's why I didn't go with an offensive player off of the Chargers. We just have too many mouths to feed. I just think ultimately you won't have one guy, with all the stats. But I just think Everett's going to be a big piece of this offense at the tight end. People tend to forget about him on this offense because, like I said, we have too many mouths to feed. But I just think Justin Herbert, I expect a big season out of him. I mean, I honestly can see less interceptions than what he had last year. I just think the offensive line's definitely improved this year. We actually have our all-pro, offensive lineman going to play this year. And I just think our defense is going to commit a lot, not commit, but get a lot of turnovers to give Herbert the ball even more. So I just expect Justin Herbert to have a crazy year in the stat category.
That's a fair pick, Christian. I think Justin Herbert's got a really good chance to take that home, as well as Joe Burrow, man. I think Joe Burrow has an excellent chance, and I really thought about picking Joe Burrow here. I picked Patrick Mahomes, but I can't pick him, so
sorry.
I'm gonna
Make it
go.
interesting. And you got to make it interesting for the listener. We all know what Patrick is,
It just hurts my feelings because I have a player on my mind, and it's Josh Allen, man. And the reason why, I think there's a lot of guys out there that are deserving as far as from a talent perspective, but I really think Josh Allen's got to have a lot on his plate this year for the Bills. I think they don't really got a number 2 guy. Tight ends normally take a little while to acclimate to the NFL level. I know they drafted Dalton Kincaid in the first round, but rarely do guys come in and just produce immediately, unless their name is Kyle Pitts. He did it with Marcus Murray, or who was throwing the ball with his rookie? Matt Ryan? No, he was with the Colts. Who threw him the ball?
Yeah.
It was Matt. It was
Wasn't
Matt
Ryan.
Yeah.
Okay. He did it his rookie year, and we know he was a tremendous prospect coming out, one of the best tight end prospects we've seen coming out. And I don't think Kincaid really touches him. And so I think Josh Allen's just got a lot on his plate, man. I think he will be the dominant player he is all season long as he stays healthy, and I think he definitely will be in the running for MVP. And I would be remiss not to mention my boy Tua that was in the talks last year.
Okay.
If he can stay healthy and put up the stats he was putting up, he'll be in the running. I'm not picking him.
Nah,
I'm just mentioning him.
He'll be in another category, Brian, not MVP. He'll be like comeback player, maybe. Not no MVP. That's just, I'm being a realist, man. If he plays the full season, they'll put him in that category before they put him in the MVP.
Christian, he was in MVP talks last year and got the most votes of any fan in
I hear you,
NFL,
but
so
he's, coming back after 3 concussions, so that's why I said comeback player, man. I'm showing respect, bro. I'm showing respect.
There's 2 concussions documented by the NFL, and
I hear you, man. I have it pulled up right now. He's in third on the comeback player, bro. Yeah, definitely, he is winning. But Tua's in third, on comeback player right now in odds.
Oh, that's interesting considering he didn't miss a whole lot of time. I mean, by that metric, you kind of could throw Lamar in there. He missed the last 6 games, but I don't think
Lamar's
5 games.
Yeah,
Lamar's 5th on the list.
That's insane. I think a player needs to miss more time or has to have a poor season to qualify. That's a subjective award. I mean, I've seen it's that's why we didn't give a prediction. I don't really, Geno was a great story. This year, if like Russell Wilson bounces back with Sean Payton, you argue that type of award. But there are already people talking about DeMar Hamlin even like staying on a roster the whole year. He's got that wrapped up. Also, like we all feel great. We love DeMar Hamlin, and the story is playing football again. But it can be a bit overdone if you just hand him that award for playing snaps next year. That said, we didn't give a prediction there, and I commend you, Brian. You think Tua's in that conversation when healthy? I've seen Lamar Love out there for MVP. I've seen quite a few guys plant their flag and take him in a new look offense. I couldn't do it. I think he'll be in that conversation if he's on the field. I'm like you. I love my quarterback. I love my team. I think they're good on the field, and he's earned that right by winning one before. But 3 different quarterbacks. Christian taking his own guy. We've all got one of our guys winning an award. Christian got the biggest award, the QB-driven MVP award, with Justin Herbert taking it. I see your Josh Allen reasoning. I was kind of there with him, battling between Joe Burrow and myself on that pick as well, Brian. We'll move on. That's all the accolades we have to hand out, and that we can look back and laugh at on later in the season when no one's right and Patrick Mahomes just runs away with it. But there's a reason I said not to pick him. We'll get on to our wild card teams. We've for anyone who's listening now, I know we're running a bit long, but we're going to try to wrap up this week 1 preview with our wild card winners, because in our previous episodes we broke down each division in each conference. We gave our division predictions as well as our division winners. So we have who we think are winning divisions, making postseason appearances. Now there's only 3 spots left on each side. That means some good teams are going to be left down in the AFC, and some whatevers are going to be making the NFC. AFC is obviously more interesting with our teams over there, so we'll save them for the back end. Just to refresh, I want y'all to say your division winners, and we'll all go a section at a time, but I'll start it off. I'm going to say my division winners on the NFC side and give 3 teams I think sneak in as well. To remind all the listeners who haven't went back and listened to our predictions pod, I had the Niners winning the West, the Lions winning the North, the Saints winning the South, and the Eagles winning the East. That leaves 3 spots for a few good teams. I think the Cowboys are a lock for one of those. They're one of the upper echelon teams in this conference. I think probably Philly, San Fran, and Dallas are my 3 heavyweights of this conference. If you had to clarify them, with Philly and San Fran being a clear cut above, in my opinion. But I think Dallas has earned locking themselves into one of the wild card spots. That leaves 2 to hand out. I don't think I can pick anyone from the South. I don't really trust that division. I think division winner gets in. North, I'm going to give the Vikings one by default because of great offense. I think the defense is terrible, but the offense will get them in and get bounced in the first round most likely. That leaves 1 spot, and I'm going to go Seattle. Seattle, Minnesota, and Dallas are my wild card teams in the NFC.
All right. I guess I'll go. So the NFC winners I had the Eagles winning the East, the Lions winning the North, the 49ers winning the West, and the Falcons winning the South. That was kind of my team that I thought would kind of surprise some people this year, was the Atlanta Falcons. And the 3 teams I have making the wild card, like Chase said, I think Dallas is a lock for it. And then Seattle, I also think, is pretty much a lock for it. And that 7th team, I really do think is going to be, it could be a lot of different teams. I ultimately settled with the Saints making it because they did not win their division. I do think they have a pretty easy schedule, and I think they could coast in the playoffs and be a first-round exit for sure.
Yeah, in the NFC, I went, in the NFC North, I went with the Lions. East, Eagles. South, I went a different route, went with the Panthers. In the West, I went with the 49ers. I kind of agree with y'all. I think the lock is definitely, unless Washington somehow makes some noise, I'm going to lean the Cowboys, though. And then after that, I'm honestly going to go with Atlanta and then Seattle.
Yep. So y'all have got 2 NFC South squads, and we've all got Dallas and Seattle locked in the wild cards. And I differed and gave Minnesota the nod. So interesting. NFC, as we're going to agree, is the weaker side, especially once you get past San Francisco and Philadelphia as overall roster construction is concerned. The AFC is a totally different picture. We're about to review our winners' predictions here. And when we get to this side of the conference, we know some good football teams are going to be the outside looking in, watching playoff football. And who knows, it might be one of us that is hurting and dreading and just trying to suffer through playoff football without one of our teams there. My prediction, it's going to be one of us. Let's see who I got. Reviewing our division winners, I had Cincinnati winning the North. I had Kansas City winning the West once again. The East, I had the Buffalo Bills once again winning the East, and we all had Jacksonville winning the South. So that leaves 3 spots. I think there's a number of great QBs in this conference that's going to be in the wild card fight, and there's going to be some good teams outside looking in. I want to say the consensus, these spots are up for the Ravens, the Chargers, the Dolphins, the Steelers, the Browns, and the Jets. You can make some arguments for other squads here and there, but those 6 teams, to me, seem like the upper echelon and the teams that are going to be picked more for these final 3 wildcard spots if you don't have them winning a division. Homer in me, I've got my Ravens making it. I think we'll find a way to work this new look offense into the playoffs, and Lamar will be in for a pretty good year. and I think we'll make it and hopefully make some noise. Is what I'm rooting for, of course. That leaves 2 spots. I have the Jets, who I had finishing second in the AFC East. So I think Aaron Rodgers is the missing piece of that unit. They have a sound roster. Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson is a dynamic connection, as Christian is planting his flag on, and Garrett Wilson winning Offensive Player of the Year. Bold take, love it, and I think it's not far off. There's some great players in the offensive side of the ball, but Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson are in for a big year, if you ask me, and the Jets will make the playoffs. That leaves 1 spot, and it is between 4 great teams. There's going to be 2 really good teams. Really, I'm going to say 1 really good team, 2 other teams that would probably make it in the NFC, outside looking in. For 1 spot, you got Miami, the Chargers, the Steelers, and the Browns. All 4, I think, can make playoffs on the NFC side of things. I think the Miami Dolphins and the Los Angeles Chargers are 2 really good teams. 2 teams that can make deep playoff runs. Ultimately, one of them's going to be the outside looking in. Last year, I went against Brian's Dolphins and had them on the outside. Of course, we all know all 3 of our teams made it. So you win some, you lose some. We'll look back on this. I'll probably be wrong somewhere. So everyone's going to be wrong somewhere, right? I couldn't flip the switch, Brian. I'm sorry. I think the Dolphins are a great team. I really do. But I have them finishing 3rd in the division behind the Jets. I have the Chargers finishing 2nd behind the Chiefs. I think ultimately there's going to be a logjam for this final wildcard spot. And who knows, this week 1 matchup that we just previewed, that could be the tiebreaker for the last playoff spot come end of the year. I think the Chargers win week 1. And I think these 2 teams very well could end up with the same record. But ultimately, I think the Chargers get in. Justin Herbert, I value a little higher than Tua, although I respect and know what dynamic of a quarterback and offense Miami has. I have them on the outside looking in. Once again, obviously, we're all friends here. I'm rooting for everybody's team to make it, and we can just battle in the playoffs. But those are my 3 teams in the wild card, and let's hear y'all's. I'm sure y'all about to make me mad. Try not to do it to y'all, but I have to.
All right, so in the West, I had Kansas City win the division. It's awkward though. None of us had Miami making the wild card. That's just crazy.
I
I
know.
had Miami win in the East. The Bengals win in the North, and Jacksonville win in the South. And the 3 wild card teams I had, first Buffalo. I do think they're still a very good roster. I don't see any reason that they're going to fall off a cliff here. And then the second team I had was the Chargers. I do think the Chargers sneak in, even though they have a long history of crapping the bed at the last moment and missing the playoffs. We'll see what happens here. And then the last team I had making it was the Ravens. So,
wow, nice guy Brian here. He's getting all of us some love. I wanted to do it, but me and Christian has planted our flag in the Jets camp so much that I ultimately had to have the Jets above the Dolphins, and it came down to those 2 teams for me. I'm sorry to cut you off, Brian, but just wanted to share my reasoning there.
no, you're good. I think the best team that didn't make the playoffs for me was the Jets, and you guys know I don't want to beat the drum here. I'm not as high on the Jets as you guys are or the consensus media. I do think they're a good football team. Just me being a Dolphins fan, I'm hoping to see Brett Favre. Oh, Aaron Rodgers. Sorry. We'll see what happens.
This guy. In the AFC, man, I'm going to go in the North starting out. I picked Cincinnati. Then in the East, like Brian said, I went with the Jets, planted my flag there. In the South, I think everybody, Jacksonville. And then in the West, I did have the Chargers winning the division. With that being said, my first wildcard team would be Kansas City. And then after that, I'm going to go to the East. I ain't going to lie to you, Brian. I did go back and forth for a little bit, but ultimately, and then after hearing your MVP talk, I'm going to go with Josh Allen. I just think this team, has been the top dog. They've been there ever since Tom Brady's left. I understand Aaron's going to win the division in my eyes, so that leaves me thinking the top dog is going to have to take a step down, but I don't think it's going to be so far down that Miami sneaks in. My other team is in the North, and I think, Chase remember my take that day when I did the North, and with that being said, Baltimore is not that team. I went with Cleveland actually making this. I just think Nick Chubb, the running game, Deshaun Watson, if he gets back how I'm predicting, I understand it's going to be a rough one if I'm planting my flag on Cleveland this year, but I just think Cleveland has, the talent's there. Myles Garrett, if he's getting to the quarterback and winning defense, I have too many awards and too many players. I expect high things on this team not to have them going to the playoffs. Ultimately, that's what led me to where I have to I'll pretty much force myself in a corner having to pick Cleveland, but I think Miami will be close. I think maybe they'll miss it by a game or two. I just think ultimately the matchups head-to-head, Buffalo should, I'm leaning maybe take at least one of them, and then it's just going to be how the division fights out at the end. I will say the East is going to be fun to watch, and so is the North on the AFC side.
Yeah, I think this is why the AFC is stronger than the NFC. It's the loaded divisions in both the East and the North. Each of those teams, maybe outside the Patriots, so we don't think it's a bad team, but we think all other 7 teams we've heard playoff conversation around. And in the West, you've got 2 consensus playoff teams by most pundits in the Chargers and Chiefs. That doesn't leave a lot of spots, guys. This is why this conference is loaded. The QBs in it are electric. So it's interesting, yeah. Brian's got love. He's got all of our teams making it. I split hairs. I had me and Christian's team making it with Brian's on the outside. And Christian's a full-on hater. He just has his Chargers, and both of us looking outside. He is playing his villain arc early. I love it. We've established our roles not only on the season, but on this podcast. Villain, the true villain. Brian, the hero, who tries to show love to all the teams, and me,
except for Aaron Rodgers. Oh, don't let him play hero ball. No. Except for Aaron and the Jets for some reason. I don't know what's going on there.
I have to give credit. Brian did give the MVP to a division rival, as did I. You don't see that in a lot of other podcasts. We're big fans of our teams. We live and die with our teams every Sunday. It's going to be fun every Sunday this year. But we pride ourselves on being pretty knowledgeable and analytically driven, smart football minds. We know when we have to pay respect to other players and what greatness they have. I think we've showcased that with all the other good QBs in our conference. It's going to be a heck of a year. I'm so glad we're finally wrapping up a Week 1 preview. I want to wrap this up with a Super Bowl prediction, if y'all care to share. Obviously, the playoffs are a crapshoot. Whoever gets hot for that time of year, usually the hottest team wins. We know best rosters tend to showcase themselves throughout a regular season, but playoff football, any good football team can beat another good football team. That's why we love the sport. So last year, obviously, we had the Chiefs-Eagles, heck of a Super Bowl matchup. That ended up being Patrick Mahomes now got his 2nd Super Bowl. It's going to be a number of teams from the AFC looking to break through and join that crowd. And the NFC has a few powerhouses that are looking to win one themselves. I'll go first. I have went back and forth on a number of teams. I think all of our teams are great, can make that playoff run. But ultimately, you have to go through one guy to get there. And I think that's Patrick Mahomes. And no matter what's going on there, for some reason, they keep winning. I will say if Chris Jones isn't back, this lingers on, I will, on record, change my prediction. But I think if Chris Jones, which I don't see him giving up all this money and fines, plays some point this year, I think the Chiefs work their way back, and Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs just keeps answering the bell. I'll say they get back, and I think they're going to go opposite in a Super Bowl rematch, not of last year, but a few years back with the San Francisco 49ers, who aren't the sexiest team, but they have, my money, the best defense. I think Brock Purdy will play fine in the playoffs, do what he's got to do to get some wins. Maybe a NFC Championship rematch with the Eagles, something along those lines. But I think San Francisco gets there, and I'll go ahead and plant my flag in them winning it and turning around this time of year. I think Kyle Shanahan has learned and knows what it takes to scheme up some great game plans on that side of the ball, has a QB that you can trust a little bit more now, and a complete roster to do so. So I got a Super Bowl rematch of a few years back in San Fran and KC, with San Fran taking home the Lombardi.
No, my bad, Brian. I'll go. You've been going second. My bad. My bad. I got caught lacking, man. On the NFC side, I think that'd be the easiest for me to go ahead and pick and list my reasoning, and it's going to be this Eagles team again. I just think, how they went out last year. The field was not, the sod god or whatever this guy is called. Kind of, I ain't gonna say hoed the Eagles out of a Super Bowl, but he sure didn't help them. So I just think the Eagles will make it back. Their defense, I think, maybe does take a step down, but I don't think it's going to be so bad that it's going to be a crazy amount. I just think they have too much on this offense, and just their offensive line is the best in the NFL in my eyes. And I think the only team that's giving them a run for that is 49ers, maybe you can say. So that's why ultimately I just think the better offensive line gets the deeper run in the NFC side, and that'd be the Eagles. So on the AFC side, I kind of wanted to go with my own team. Kind of wanted to go with Joe Burrow. I'm high on the Jets. But ultimately, I just think if my quarterback does win MVP, we sneak in this thing, I'm going to say the Chargers make it, and it'd be the Chargers versus Eagles. I just think if, we have this MVP run, like I'm saying, and our defense does actually get right, and, we still have two edge rushers on both sides, and I think they were in the playoffs time. We seen what our defense did, and like Brian said, we choked. I mean, it's plain and simple, but you see when it does come to playoff football, we have shown bright sides to our game. So I just think with our defense getting turnovers in the playoffs, I think that'll play into this, and our offensive line being the best offensive line since Justin Herbert has been on the team, and Austin Eckler also in his last year. I just think, what an ending it would be for Austin Eckler to get a Super Bowl with his team and then maybe ultimately finding his new home.
All right. I'm going to keep it short and sweet because I want to save my takes for Sunday night, because all the hate I've heard on the Miami Dolphins on this podcast and not making the playoffs by nobody, I'm ready for Sunday. However, I will keep it short and sweet, man, because like I said, I'm going to save it. Kansas City and Philadelphia.
It's hard not to go another direction. Those are the powerhouses, the pinnacles, the teams that have established themselves. KC, Cincinnati. You argue Buffalo was an AFC championship game a couple years ago. Now the NFC side, both San Fran and Philly. If you pick outside of those five, you're playing against the odds. I'm not saying none of our teams can't do it. None of a team like Jacksonville can get hot in the postseason, or a team like Dallas can get hot in the postseason, upset one of those powerhouses. Those teams are beatable. But if you're picking against them, you're not playing the odds. And that's just trying to play it smart here. I think that's what all of us are leaning towards. Any final things before we get out of here, guys? That was a long one, but exciting one nonetheless.
Ready for football, baby.
We are
about time.
We are here. Thank all of you for listening. We have been grinding, researching, putting together these podcast topics and concepts for a while now, and now it's no more. We're just going to be straight reviewing football game action every week, catching you up on the news every weekday, and getting that in, and just enjoying a football season together. I think we can build something here. We really enjoy and love all our teams, and we enjoy watching football as a whole. So for those that you have been listening and liking and sharing the content, we appreciate you. Keep doing so. Tell your friend, tell your enemy, tell your brother from another. Tell all of them. We want this thing to grow and to expand and keep building, because we're excited about what we have, and we're excited about football season being back. With that said, we'll get out of here and see you guys on Sunday nights for the review and recap of all the slate of action that happened in the 1 o'clock and 4:25 games, along with the Thursday night game we're getting tomorrow night. We'll recap all of that, as well as touch on any news that happened throughout the day. Thank you all for listening and joining us. We will see you next time.
See ya.
Peace.